The plasma bolt missed Captain Sarah Chen's head by 3 centimeters. She felt the heat sear past her temple as she dove behind the crystalline outcrop, her shoulder slamming against jagged rock. Blood immediately soaked through her uniform sleeve. The Kresh warship loomed overhead, blotting out 2 of Epsilon Prime's 3 moons, its weapons charging for another volley that would turn this entire plateau into molten glass. Apparently, she hadn't meant to be here. The diplomatic shuttle was supposed to land at the neutral zone, shake hands with whoever represented the Quellara Consortium, sign the mining rights agreement, and leave. Simple. Safe. Instead, she was crouched behind alien stone while her translator earpiece screamed warnings in 14 languages, watching the Kresh dropships descend like metallic vultures. The shuttle was debris now, scattered across half a kilometer of purple vegetation that burned with chemical fire. Sarah pressed her hand against the wound. Deep. Not fatal yet, but the blood loss would kill her in maybe 20 minutes. She had a sidearm with 11 shots, a broken radio, and absolutely no idea where Ambassador Torrens or the security detail had gone after the explosion. Movement to her left. She swung the pistol up, finger tight on the trigger. The alien was tall, maybe 7 feet, with 4 arms and skin that rippled with bioluminescent patterns shifting from deep violet to silver. The Quellara. Sarah had seen the briefing hollows, but nothing prepared her for the reality. The being's face was angular, almost insectoid, with large compound eyes that reflected light like oil on water. It wore intricate armor that seemed grown rather than forged, all organic curves and chitinous plates. 2 of those forearms were clutched against its torso. Dark fluid seeped between the fingers. Alien blood, but blood nonetheless. Human, the translator rendered the clicking musical sounds into flat English. You are the military escort? Captain Sarah Chen, Terran Defense Corps. She kept the gun steady. You are injured. I am Shivral Keth, Matriarch Select of the Quellara Consortium. The alien's bioluminescence flared orange, pain colors according to the briefing. My status is irrelevant. The Kresh have declared void war. They mean to claim this world before our agreement with Terra is formalized. Sarah's mind raced. Matriarch Select meant Crown Princess. Heir. She was looking at alien royalty bleeding out in a war zone. Where are your guards? Dead. The first strike was precise. Shivralketh's lower arms gestured toward the burning wreckage of what must have been the Quellara diplomatic transport. They targeted the honor guard specifically. Assassination protocol. Another plasma bolt screamed overhead, this one closer. The Kresh were bracketing their position, walking fire across the plateau. Sarah could hear the heavy thumps of their combat drones advancing through the smoke. Can you move? I can function. Shivralketh straightened, and Sarah saw the extent of the damage. One of the alien's middle arms hung at a wrong angle, and the armor across her thorax was cracked, leaking that dark fluid in steady pulses. But I cannot fight effectively. I am not trained for infantry combat. Royalty wouldn't be. Sarah made a decision that would either save both their lives or kill them slightly slower than staying put. Then we move. East, toward those rock formations. Stay low, stay quiet, and if I tell you to drop, you drop. Sarah broke from cover, moving in a combat crouch that sent fresh agony through her shoulder. Behind her, she heard the Quellara following, surprisingly quiet for something so large. The terrain was murder, all loose scree and knife-edged crystal formations that caught the light from the burning wreckage. Sarah's vision swam. Blood loss. She'd need to pack that wound soon or she'd pass out at exactly the wrong moment. They made it 30 meters before the drone spotted them. It rose from behind a boulder with that distinctive Kresh whine, all angular plates and weapon pods. Sarah put 2 rounds into its optical cluster before it could acquire them, and the machine stuttered sideways, sparking, not destroyed, but damaged enough to lose tracking. Keep moving! Shivralketh stumbled but kept pace. They reached the rocks as the main Kresh force opened up, plasma fire turning the air into superheated hell. Sarah shoved the alien into a narrow crevice between 2 formations and pressed in after her, feeling the heat wash over the stone. In the confined space, pressed against alien royalty while both of them bled, Sarah became acutely aware of several things. First, Shivralketh was trembling, those bioluminescent patterns flickering erratically. Second, the alien smelled like ozone and something sweet, almost like honeysuckle. Third, they were absolutely going to die here if Sarah didn't think of something brilliant in the next 60 seconds. Why? Shivralketh's voice was quieter now, almost lost under the weapons fire. Why risk yourself for me? Your mission was diplomacy, not combat rescue. Sarah checked her ammunition. 9 rounds left. She started ripping fabric from her already ruined uniform sleeve, wadding it against her shoulder wound. Because leaving someone to die when I can help isn't in my job description. She tied off the makeshift bandage with her teeth. Also, you're a head of state. Losing you means this whole sector probably goes to war, so call it enlightened self-interest. Pragmatic. The bioluminescence steadied slightly, shifting to a cooler blue. I was told humans were sentimental. We're both. Sarah risked a look around the rock. The Kresh were advancing in formation, methodical and professional. They knew their targets were wounded and cornered. They could take their time. How many ships do they have in orbit? 2 destroyers. My fleet is 3 hours away. Terra's nearest response group is further. So we hold for 3 hours against a planetary invasion force with 9 bullets and no backup.
Sarah laughed, and it hurt her shoulder.
Great. Just great. She pulled off her jacket, the dark blue TDF issue that was probably worth more as a bandage than anything else now. But Shivralketh was still bleeding, and the wound looked worse in the close quarters. Here. Sarah held it out. Press this against your torso wound. Hard. The fabric will help clot it. Shivralketh stared at the jacket, all 4 eyes focusing on it with an intensity that seemed almost religious. You offer me your protective garment? Your symbol of rank? I offer you something to stop the bleeding. Sarah's patience was fraying along with her consciousness. Take it, please. 2 of those long fingers accepted the jacket with surprising delicacy. Shivralketh pressed it against the cracked armor, and Sarah saw dark blood immediately soak into the blue fabric. The Kresh were 20 meters out now. Sarah could hear their communications, harsh clicking that the translator struggled to parse. They were coordinating for a final push. She had 9 bullets and a half-formed plan that would probably get them both killed. Listen carefully, Sarah said, checking the plasma charge on a Kresh weapon she'd spotted earlier. Half buried in rubble. Still active, maybe. I need you to trust me for about 90 seconds. Can you do that? Shivralketh's bioluminescence flared bright gold, and even without the translator, Sarah understood it. The alien queen smiled. Show me what humans do, Captain Chen, when they decide not to die. Sarah felt her own smile, predatory and probably slightly unhinged from blood loss. We cheat. She grabbed the Kresh weapon, praying to every god humanity had ever invented, that the trigger mechanism was universal enough, and stepped out into the open. The 9 bullets wouldn't win a firefight, but 9 bullets in exactly the right places, combined with an overloading plasma rifle and a wounded alien queen who was apparently a lot tougher than she looked, might just buy them the time they needed. The first Kresh warrior went down with a bullet through its weapon's power cell. The explosion took out 2 more. Sarah kept moving, kept firing, kept counting down in her head while behind her, Shivralketh began to sing. It was a war cry that predated human civilization, ululating and fierce, amplified by vocal structures humans didn't possess. The sound made the Kresh hesitate for exactly 1 precious second. Sarah made it count. She threw the overloading Kresh rifle into their formation, dove back toward the rocks, and felt the world turn white as the plasma coils detonated in a chain reaction that shook the entire plateau. When her vision cleared, the Kresh advance was shattered, their formation broken, their drones scattered, burning across the purple vegetation. And standing at the edge of the crevice, wearing the human military jacket soaked in her own blood, Shivralketh looked every inch a queen going to war. 3 hours, the alien said softly, all 4 arms now holding weapons taken from fallen Kresh. We hold for 3 hours, Captain Chen. Sarah checked her pistol. 4 bullets left. Her shoulder was screaming. Her vision kept trying to tunnel, and somewhere in orbit 2 Kresh destroyers were probably preparing to glass this entire plateau rather than let them survive. But the alien queen stood ready, wearing Sarah's jacket like a battle standard, and something in that image struck her as deeply fundamentally right. This was how alliances were forged. Not in conference rooms and treaty halls, but in blood and fire, and the simple choice to stand together when falling would be easier. 3 hours, Sarah agreed, and raised her weapon toward the next wave of Kresh emerging from the smoke. Let's make them earn it. The battle began in earnest as the moons rose higher, and 2 wounded warriors discovered they were far more dangerous together than either species had dared to imagine. Sarah's tactical mind meshed with Shivralketh's knowledge of the terrain, human aggression blending with Quillarau resilience. They fell into a rhythm, covering each other's weaknesses, exploiting the Kresh forces' overconfidence. Minutes stretched into an hour. Sarah's ammunition ran dry, so she fought with Kresh weapons, with rocks, with anything that came to hand. Shivralkith moved like flowing water despite her injuries, all four arms working in concert to create zones of absolute denial. They retreated deeper into the rock formations, using the narrow passages to funnel the Kresh into kill zones. Sarah showed the alien queen human close-quarters combat techniques, brutal and efficient. Shivralkith taught Sarah where to strike Kresh anatomy for maximum effect, knowledge purchased through millennia of border conflicts. The plateau became a graveyard. Fresh bodies littered the purple vegetation, and still they came, wave after wave, because their commanders in orbit had committed to this course and Kresh doctrine didn't allow for retreat. 2 hours in, Sarah collapsed against a rock face, her vision graying at the edges. She'd lost too much blood, pushed too hard. Her shoulder was on fire, and she couldn't feel her left hand anymore. Shivralkith crouched beside her, the human jacket still pressed against her torso, now stiff with dried blood from both their species. "Stay conscious, Captain. The fleet approaches. Tell them we gave them hell." Sarah's words were slurring. "Tell them humans don't quit. You will tell them yourself." The alien's bioluminescence was fading too, cycling through dim colors that spoke of exhaustion and pain. "We are not finished." But they were, and both of them knew it. The next Kresh wave was forming up, larger than before, with heavy weapons that would reduce their position to rubble. 2 wounded warriors, no matter how fierce, couldn't hold against that. Sarah tried to stand and failed. Her legs wouldn't support her anymore. Then the sky split open with thunder. Quellara warships dropped from orbit in a combat descent that should have been impossible, riding columns of fusion fire that turned night into day. They were early somehow, arriving with a fury that spoke of violated protocols and abandoned caution. The lead ship, massive and ancient, bore markings Sarah's fading translator identified as the Matriarch's personal dreadnought. It unleashed weapons that predated human spaceflight, turning the Kresh ground forces into scattered atoms. In orbit, the Kresh destroyers were already burning, caught between the arriving Quellara fleet and a Terran carrier group that must have broken every speed record to arrive so impossibly fast. Sarah felt hands gentle despite their alienness lifting her. Shivralkith held her with surprising tenderness, all 4 arms cradling the human who had bled beside her. "You saved the Matriarch Select," Shivralkith whispered, her bioluminescence now pulsing with colors Sarah had no name for. "You bled for one you had never met, asked nothing, demanded nothing." "This is what humans are? This is what anyone should be," Sarah managed. Then darkness took her. She woke in a medical bay that smelled of antiseptic and that strange honeysuckle scent. Her shoulder was bandaged properly now, IV lines running into both arms, and standing at the foot of her bed was Shivralkith, wearing formal armor that gleamed like starlight. And over that armor, carefully draped across the shoulders, was Sarah's jacket. It had been cleaned, repaired, and treated with something that made the fabric shimmer with the same bioluminescence that marked Quellara royalty. "You're wearing my jacket," Sarah said, her voice rough. "I wore it into battle." Quellara tradition states that any garment worn by royalty in victorious combat becomes a sacred banner. Shivralkith's voice carried absolute certainty. "This jacket is now a symbol of our alliance, Captain Chen. It will hang in the Hall of Matriarchs, and every Quellara child will learn the story of the human who bled beside their queen." Sarah tried to process that. Her ratty TDF jacket, the one with the coffee stain she'd never quite gotten out, was going to become an alien religious artifact. I just did what needed doing. Yes. Shivralkith moved closer, and Sarah saw that the alien's wounds were healing, new armor already beginning to form over the damaged sections. That is precisely why it matters. Humans see what needs doing and do it, regardless of protocols or politics or personal cost. Terra asked for a mining agreement. Instead, you gave us something far more valuable. What's that? Proof that we chose the right allies. The alien queen's bioluminescence settled into steady gold, and Sarah knew enough now to recognize it as joy. The Matriarch has declared formal union between our peoples. Not merely trade, but true alliance. We will stand together, as you and I stood on that plateau. Sarah closed her eyes, exhaustion pulling at her. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she knew this would change everything. Humanity's first true alien alliance, forged not in negotiation, but in shared combat. The political implications would echo for generations. But right now, she was just tired, and her shoulder hurt, and she'd somehow survived the worst day of her life. "The jacket looks good on you," she murmured, sleep claiming her again. When she woke next, it was to find her room filled with flowers, both human and Quilera varieties, and a message from Earth Command that was equal parts commendation and bewilderment. Ambassador Torrance had survived, along with most of the security detail, and they'd watched the entire battle from their own defensive position, recording everything. The footage had already gone viral across human space. Captain Sarah Chen, bleeding and defiant, fighting beside an alien queen. The image of Shivralkith wearing that blue jacket, standing against impossible odds, had become an instant icon. Humanity had found its moment. The galaxy was watching. And in the Hall of Matriarchs, on a world humans were only beginning to understand, a jacket hung in a place of honor, forever marking the day two warriors bled together and changed the future of two civilizations. Sarah would wear the scars from that plateau for the rest of her life. But she would also wear the title that Shivralkith bestowed upon her in the formal ceremony 3 weeks later, when both of them had healed enough to stand before their peoples. Shield Sister, the first human to hold rank in the Quillara Honor Guard, the woman who saved a queen and earned an empire's eternal gratitude. The treaty was signed not in some sterile conference room, but on that plateau, where the purple vegetation had already begun to reclaim the scorched earth. Sarah stood beside Shivralkith, now formally crowned matriarch, and watched as human and Quillara officials finalized an alliance that would reshape the galactic order. Her replacement jacket, issued by a TDF that was still trying to understand what she'd accomplished, felt wrong somehow. Too clean. Too new. It lacked the weight of what she'd given away. But Shivralkith noticed her discomfort and smiled with those alien features that Sarah had learned to read. "You miss it," the matriarch said softly. "It was just a jacket." "No, Captain Shin, it was a choice, made in blood and fire, to value life over protocol." Shivralkith's bioluminescence pulsed warm amber. It was the moment Terra proved itself worthy of the stars. Sarah looked out across the plateau, where memorials now stood for the fallen of all three species. The Kresh had sued for peace after the battle, recognizing in that defeat the futility of opposing a human Quillara alliance. The galaxy was reordering itself around what happened here, and Sarah was still processing her role in it all. "I just didn't want either of us to die," she said finally. "Yes," Shivralkith agreed. "That is what makes it matter." They stood together as the ceremony concluded, as speeches were made in multiple languages, as history crystallized around them. And when it was done, when the officials had departed and the crowds had dispersed, the matriarch placed something in Sarah's hands. It was a new jacket, Quillara made but cut in human military style, woven from materials that would turn blades and resist fire, embedded with technology that would keep the wearer alive in hostile environments. It was worth more than Sarah would earn in a decade of service, but sewn into the fabric impossible to remove was a patch. Blue fabric from Earth, stained with blood from two species, preserved and honored. "Wear this when you stand beside me," Shivralkith said. "Wear it, so all will know that humanity bleeds for its allies, asks for nothing, and gives everything." Sarah put it on, feeling the weight settle across her shoulders, and knew she would carry this moment for the rest of her life, not as burden, but as reminder of what they'd proven on a burning plateau under alien moons. That courage needed no translation. That sacrifice knew no species. That two wounded warriors, standing together against impossible odds, could forge bonds stronger than any treaty. The jacket fit perfectly, and as Sarah looked up at the stars beginning to emerge in the darkening sky, she understood that this was only the beginning. Humanity had bled for its place among the stars, and the galaxy would never forget the captain who gave her jacket to a queen and changed everything.